The Indian Ocean is emerging as one of the world's most strategically vital regions. More than 80% of global energy trade flows pass through these waters. For major powers like India, China, and the United States, controlling, or at least securing access to these maritime routes is a matter of critical importance. China is pouring billions of dollars into ports, infrastructure, and logistical bases. India is expanding its military presence and strengthening ties with small island nations. The U.S. maintains a key outpost at Diego Garcia, but now faces new challenges to its influence in the region. The geostrategic competition here is intensifying in increasingly unpredictable ways. Why is the race for influence in the Indian Ocean accelerating? What quiet developments are unfolding that could reshape global supply chains? And is this region heading toward multipolar cooperation or the risk of strategic conflict? Let's begin our analysis with the foundation, the geographic location and crucial role of the Indian Ocean in global trade. According to experts, 95% of India's imports and exports, one of Asia's largest economies, are transported by sea, with the majority passing through the Indian Ocean. Notably, nearly 80% of India's imported energy also relies on this maritime route. China, the world's leading trading nation, likewise depends heavily on the Indian Ocean to import oil from the Middle East and East Africa. These shipments must pass through the Strait of Malacca, a vital transit point that is strategically important, yet highly vulnerable to disruption. Positioned between three continents, Asia, Africa, and Oceania, the Indian Ocean is the only ocean named after a country, yet its influence extends far beyond any single nation's borders. It serves as a critical bridge linking major economies and transporting essential raw materials. There are three key choke points along this shipping corridor: Hormuz, the gateway for oil exports from the Gulf region, Bab el-Mandeb, the link between the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, Malacca, the crucial artery connecting the Indian and Pacific Oceans. A disruption at any one of these points could have far-reaching consequences: soaring energy prices, shortages of goods, and a breakdown in global supply chains. For this reason, the Indian Ocean is not only a resource-rich maritime region, it is also a lifeline of strategic importance for major powers. In the following sections, we'll explore how nations are vying for influence across this critical area. For India, the Indian Ocean has long been viewed as an extension of its strategic sphere. This perspective is increasingly reflected in concrete actions, including a growing military and diplomatic presence at key regional locations. A prime example is India's cooperation with Mauritius. India has helped build an airstrip on Agalaga Island, designed to support maritime surveillance and logistics operations, widely seen as a move to boost early monitoring capabilities in the area. Additionally, India has established a naval logistics facility at the port of Duqm in Oman, allowing its navy to extend operational reach into West Asia and the Horn of Africa. These initiatives are part of India's broader Act East policy, an effort to deepen political security and economic ties with Southeast Asia and the wider Pacific region. Clearly, India is shifting from a reactive stance to a proactive one, seeking not only to protect its own interests, but also to play a stabilizing role in the region. Several smaller regional nations have responded positively to this more active Indian presence. However, India's growing assertiveness is also unfolding against the backdrop of increasing regional competition, particularly with China. So is India simply responding to China's rising presence, or is it stepping up to play its own strategic game in this critical maritime space? For over a decade, China has been advancing its foreign policy through the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), a sweeping plan to build networks of infrastructure trade and investment connecting Asia to Europe, Africa, and beyond. More than just an economic development strategy, The BRI is also seen as a tool for Beijing to expand its political and strategic influence. In the Indian Ocean region, China has heavily invested in coastal infrastructure projects, including ports, highways, energy facilities, and digital networks. In Mauritius, a strategically located island nation, China has supported the construction of an airport irrigation systems and smart city projects. Some of the surveillance equipment used in these initiatives has come from major Chinese tech firms, raising concerns about regional security risks. While major powers focus on dominating key maritime routes, small nations like Mauritius have emerged as pivotal geopolitical junctions in the Indian Ocean. Despite its modest land area, Mauritius commands an exclusive economic zone (EEZ) of 2.3 million square kilometers, encompassing critical trade lanes and valuable marine resources. Culturally and historically, Mauritius shares deep-rooted ties with India, as a large portion of its population traces its ancestry to the Indian subcontinent. Building on this foundation, the two countries have strengthened cooperation in education, healthcare infrastructure, and digital technology. Mauritius is often affectionately referred to as Chota Bharat, a miniature India. At the same time, China has also become increasingly active in Mauritius investing through its Belt and Road Initiative in a range of development projects, such as airport construction and digital infrastructure. Both sides present these initiatives as civilian in nature, aimed at promoting sustainable development. However, a more pressing military issue has come to the fore: the sovereignty dispute over Diego Garcia, the island that hosts a key US-UK military base. Although the UK currently controls the territory, Mauritius has repeatedly asserted its claim. In 2019, the International Court of Justice (ICJ) ruled that the separation of Diego Garcia from Mauritius was unlawful, yet no concrete changes have followed. Diego Garcia remains vital to Western security operations, particularly amid rising strategic competition in the Indian Ocean. With overlapping interests from India, China, and Western powers, Mauritius now finds itself at the heart of a complex geopolitical crossroads. Its greatest challenge lies in striking a balance, leveraging its strategic position for long-term development, without becoming entangled in great power rivalries or falling under the influence of any single actor. In recent decades, maritime security has evolved beyond a purely military concern. It has become a cornerstone of global commerce. As reliance on sea transport grows, especially across the Indian Ocean, protecting shipping lanes has become a strategic priority for many nations. Factors such as climate change, supply chain crises, piracy, and seabed resource disputes have all added new layers of complexity. Of particular concern are strategic choke points, narrow routes through which large volumes of global trade and energy must pass, making them extremely vulnerable to disruption. The Strait of Malacca is a prime example. This narrow passage connecting the South China Sea to the Indian Ocean carries up to 60% of China's imported oil. Even a minor incident here could have immediate consequences for Beijing's energy security. To reduce its dependence on the Malacca route, China is developing alternative corridors, notably through Myanmar's Kyaukphyu port and Pakistan's Gwadar port under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). Though these alternatives can't fully replace Malacca, they represent efforts to diversify risk and build a more layered logistics network. But China isn't alone in this strategy. India, Japan, the United States, and other littoral states are also heavily investing in maritime security through joint naval exercises, data sharing, and port upgrades. All of this highlights a major shift. The Indian Ocean is transforming into a critical strategic zone where trade security and diplomacy are deeply intertwined. Safeguarding freedom of navigation is no longer just a matter of power projection. It is a vital necessity for both global powers and small nations caught amid the currents of geopolitical rivalry. For decades, the United States has been a dominant force in the Indo-Pacific region, wielding influence not only through its global network of military bases, but also through aid programs, defense cooperation, and development assistance. However, recent strategic shifts, including cuts to foreign aid, a scaled-back military presence, and a growing focus on domestic challenges have led to a partial decline in U.S. influence in the region, especially in terms of soft power. That said, the U.S. has not withdrawn entirely. The Diego Garcia base, administered by the U.K. but used by the U.S., remains a critical strategic outpost supporting force deployment, maritime surveillance, and logistics operations. Still, the vacuum left by the U.S. in infrastructure and economic development is gradually being filled by China, whose Belt and Road Initiative projects are drawing attention from smaller nations in need of long-term development partners. As the U.S. steps back in some areas, the question arises, will the region evolve toward a new form of balance, or will it become more vulnerable to strategic conflicts, especially in the absence of clear coordination mechanisms? One key challenge facing U.S. leadership in the region is the inconsistency in foreign policy between administrations. Frequent shifts in strategic direction from one president to the next have left some regional partners uncertain about Washington's long-term commitments. Nevertheless, the U.S. still holds significant advantages: cutting-edge defense technology, a strong alliance network, and the capacity for rapid response. Initiatives like the Quad, which includes the U.S., Japan, India, and Australia, are being promoted as part of a broader effort to reassert U.S. strategic presence in the Indo-Pacific. The core issue is no longer whether the U.S. is withdrawing, but rather can Washington adapt its strategy quickly and flexibly enough to maintain its influence in a region where competition in economics, security, and trust is growing more intense every day. Analyzing developments across the Indian Ocean region, many experts caution against hastily labeling it a flashpoint for great power confrontation. Instead, the region increasingly reflects a broader shift toward a multipolar global order, one where multiple centers of power coexist, competing yet also capable of cooperating when conditions align. Within this evolving landscape, each country is pursuing its own distinct strategy. India is emphasizing soft power through investments in education, healthcare, technical assistance, and social infrastructure, especially targeting small island nations and coastal developing states. China continues to maintain its presence via the Belt and Road Initiative, leveraging its financial clout and capacity to quickly execute projects in areas that need capital and infrastructure. While competition for influence is inevitable, the bigger question isn't who will win, but rather whether the region can establish a balanced, inclusive, and stable order that serves collective interests instead of just those of the major powers. For island nations like Mauritius, the Maldives, and Seychelles, the strategic choice is no longer simply about which side to pick, but how to balance partnerships, protect policy independence, and leverage their strategic positions for long-term sustainable growth. The future of the Indian Ocean may not belong to any single power. Instead, it could become a space where diverse strategies, despite their differences, are forced to adapt, coexist, and interconnect in an increasingly complex and tightly woven regional framework. The Indian Ocean is rapidly becoming a critical hub for global trade, energy, and security. Major powers like India, China, the United States, and others are actively recalibrating their strategies to strengthen their presence in the region. We're seeing economic activity, infrastructure investments, and defense cooperation increasingly tied to one overarching goal: securing influence and access to key maritime routes. While competition is clearly intensifying on multiple fronts, there are so far no signs of direct confrontation. Which leads us to a vital question. Can the countries of the region maintain long-term stability and cooperation, or will interests continue to fragment into rival blocs? What's your perspective on the shifts unfolding in the Indian Ocean? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a meaningful conversation. If you found today's video insightful or thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis on geopolitics, global strategy, and economic trends. Turn on notifications so you never miss an important topic. And if you think this content can help others better understand our changing world, share it with your friends and your community. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video where every topic opens up a new strategic perspective.